Hi, this is Paul from SP Film Viewers, and welcome back to another video of Talking Movies with SP Film Viewers. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about some of the highlights of what I watched in the month of January 2025. I say that because there are some films that I don't think are worth talking about on this video, so if you want to see what those scores are for some other films I don't talk about here, then all you need to do is go over to the Letterboxd page of ours, which is SP Film Viewers. I'll put a link in the description below so you can go find that, but it's very obvious. It'll be the little logo that we have on all the socials and all that. So yeah, appreciate you giving us a follow on there. Finally, before we get into things, really appreciate a like on the video, and also if you would subscribe to the channel, that would be very much appreciated as well. So without further ado, let's get into things. The very first movie we watched in January 2025 was one that me and Sophie had wanted to see for a while, and she'd got me for quite some time, and it's been on the shelf looking for a prime opportunity, and I think to start off the new year with something strong, so we went with His Girl Friday. This is a Howard Hawks film, which we know for when we recorded an episode for Bringing Up Baby, and obviously we know Cary Grant, and I think Sophie really likes him as an actor as well for his sort of mannerisms and how he kind of has that sort of like charisma that James Stewart has in his films as well. This of course is a Criterion release, so very happy to have that in the collection and to obviously like finally get round to watch it, because it's a typical like screwball comedy as what Bringing Up Baby was, which is centred around Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell working off each other to kind of get the scoop, the story for the newspaper, and ultimately get the best story and like further their careers. But they find themselves drawn to each other because they both have a passion for searching for stories, yet they ultimately learn that they really do actually love each other. The film does go like a rate of knots, particularly for the fact of the dialogue that is delivered from the characters, not just the two leads. Everyone else is kind of like running around like headless chickens kind of thing, and just like talking really, really fast, and makes for an interesting watch indeed. So this is also an adaptation of a 1931 film called The Front Page. There's a 4K restoration of The Front Page, it says on here, actually looking at it. So it'd be interesting to look at the difference of the quality of between the two, because this would be deserving of like a 4K transfer, because I say like as Criterion are sort of like delving into that a bit more now, like with upgrades of films in their collection, that I think it's more than inevitable this will probably go for that in the future, so might be on the lookout, and if on repeat viewings it'll be really enjoyable. Now the first film we covered for the podcast this year was Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit, which is an Aardman animation, and you may remember I talked about Vengeance Most Foul and A Close Shave, and in fact it was Vengeance Most Foul was so great that I rewatched that alongside The Curse of the Were-Rabbit again, because it was so much fun, and I think it was more like to do like a proper like comparison between the two of like how things have gone in terms of like a full-length feature film of the characters. Definitely think that Vengeance Most Foul is a lot stronger, but maybe that's because it is more fresh, and there's just the sense of obviously like the quality of it looks a lot more detailed and just looks like more vibrant, as I say. And obviously there was a lot of work that went into the 2005 film, but had an absolute blast rewatching Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and Sophie hadn't seen it before as well, so I wanted to see what her thoughts were on it as well. So if you want to hear what we had to say in more detail, then go over to the podcast on Spotify or wherever else you get your podcasts from, and we've also got it on the YouTube as well if you want to find it on there, so it'll be in the channel as well. Now to talk about a couple of belated Christmas movies that I watched early in the month. One of them being Terrifier 3. I was again a bit sceptical about going into it initially because I wasn't a massive fan of Terrifier 2. I could understand like they up the ante with the production and everything like that, but that one really did drag, and I talk about that in the like the very first Talking Movies with SP videos I did. And this one, again, I appreciated the aesthetic they were going for. Like, it had that retro feel to the quality of the video. I'd rented the disc on 4K, but I don't really think it's like one of those rare occasions where the 4K didn't really matter at all. Really, I could have just watched the Blu-ray and had the exact same experience. And as for the content of the film itself, I think I had it in my head I wasn't going to really gel with it again, based on how I was with the second film, and I feel like this was even worse than that one, despite a short runtime. But I just don't really get the whole why it's now suddenly become like supernatural elements to it. I think it's just like, oh, just a means of like, oh, you can just keep this franchise going and going. I know that you could say the same for like, oh, like with Michael Myers and stuff like that, but I don't know. I feel like somehow that still feels a bit more grounded. I suppose that's not the point with this kind of character, because he's just over the top in how he kills people anyway. So you can just like say, well, you take it for what it is with that. You can do all these kind of crazy kills and all that kind of stuff. So why can't he just keep being resurrected and have all this kind of spiritual stuff going on? But I don't know. I think the involvement of the like sidekick he has now, I prefer the little girl from the first one a lot more as a someone who goes alongside him. But this other one, obviously, the survivor from the very first film, and now has come back, and it's like, I don't like, there's so much like grotesque with stuff with her, and I just don't like how he has to buddy up with her now, all of a sudden, now that she's like on board with him. I don't know, like just like Stockholm Syndrome or something like that. And I know they're going to be doing a fourth one, because I've seen it posted online somewhere. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're just going to keep doing this and doing this, but did it need to have the Christmas element to it? I suppose it gives it a sort of another gimmick, but I feel like I'm maybe done with the franchise now. I think it's like, oh, 3's enough, definitely enough. 4, I don't even think, like, I don't want to, I shouldn't really be bothered with it all. So we'll have to see if my mind changes on that in the future, but yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Now, a festive horror I did enjoy was a Spanish film called The Day of the Beast. This is definitely a black comedy of sorts, and it's focused around a priest who believes that the Antichrist is going to be born on the 25th of December, and so he is trying to provoke the devil to let him show himself so that he can sort of like stop this cataclysmic event happening. So he's basically going around being an arse, really, to put it lightly, and with some like very humorous consequences, and just how it's sort of like approached, and there's like a death metal band involved and all this kind of other stuff, and it was just a lot funnier than I anticipated it being, just in sort of like the mannerisms of like other characters that get involved in his scheme, as it were, and everything like that. And there's a couple of bits of ropey CGI here and there, but nothing that really takes away from it. I think the overall experience of the film was very enjoyable, and if you want something that's very much against the grain of Christmas films, another alternative one to recommend if you like your horror and something that's in a foreign language as well, then definitely recommend you go and check this out next year. Speaking of New Year's, there's one that I watched in the spirit of New Year's coming around, and it's another film from the Criterion Collection, and that is The Phantom Carriage. This is a US import I got a while back, and I think it was like I was looking for the opportunity to watch it. Having recently rewatched the 1920s Nosferatu, I was kind of like a bit of a kick for silent cinema, and so I thought, well, this is a prime opportunity to check this one out. So the story behind this is The last person to die on New Year's Eve before the clock strikes 12 is doomed to take the reins of Death's chariot and work tirelessly collecting fresh souls for the next year. And that's the legend of the Phantom Carriage in this story. And there's a character who doesn't go along with the story, but then soon learns that from that it's like, oh no, I made a terrible mistake, and like I want to live again, type of thing. Almost like It's a Wonderful Life in a way. The film is Swedish, which I don't think in my knowledge, I think I've seen a Swedish film before, even if it is in black and white subtitles, although this does have like tinted coloured as well, so a bit like how the Nosferatu print is now seen and various other films of the silent era. So this was another interesting watch. Really has a lot going for it in terms of like the story, again, like appreciation of life. Again, I'm still impressed with like the special effects that are used in this thing, like the double negatives and all that kind of stuff. It's just amazing like how they were able to do stuff like this back in the 1920s. Yeah, if it's something you want to check out for silent cinema fans, then yeah, I would definitely do so. And if you want something a bit different and maybe somewhat macabre, then yeah, it's also a recommendation for you too. Speaking of Nosferatu, we also went to see the new Nosferatu from Robert Eggers in the cinema fairly recently, and there's a bit of a story behind the whole ordeal with even getting to that in the first place. So if you want to hear about that story, then please go do check out the podcast episode. But honestly, I think Robert Eggers is like one of my favourite directors of all time, almost definitely in the horror genre at the very least. The visuals on this are absolutely amazing. The use of shadows and lighting as their own characters in a way just like really stand out. I think it just elevated the horror aspects, much to Sophie's delight, shall we say. There was numerous times where I'm having to hold her hand through it because she was like, oh, I'm a bit scared. Like with like, I don't think even I quite anticipated how much of the like possession elements were going to be involved in this film. But yeah, I definitely can't wait to watch this again. Probably going to get the 4K disc when it comes out, and I think it's just another win for Robert Eggers. Definitely recommend, especially if you like your horror. And it seems to be the month of vampire movies, as there are two of the ones I watched throughout the month. One of them is right here, which is the Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter, and that is has its own separate video with an unboxing of what's inside that box. But the film itself is a right blast, really. I'll say is it's like a swashbuckling type of adventure, and there's like certain humour elements to it which I kind of didn't expect, and I feel like it's one that is quite an underrated Hammer horror film. Like, although I say that I hadn't seen the film before, or hearing about it on like Instagram and stuff, I'd seen like a lot of buzz about the film on there. This box set here that's really prolific in terms of like what it means for Hammer films to be released in a 4K such as this, and I think they went all out with what they had to include in the set. And I must say the restoration of the film is pretty spot on, although I've nothing to really compare it to before, but I can imagine they've put a lot of time and effort into making it as best as they could, and I feel like it's deserving for something that I'll be certainly rewatching multiple times. I will say though, I guess I would have preferred more vampires to be involved in the film, but I think of the nature of what Hammer Films does, I don't think they could have gone too over the top with things, because that would obviously, for the time as well, you'd have a load more like CGI elements to it to encompass something like that. So for the time, I think it's very notable as a watch. So if you haven't already, go check it out. I've got a feeling they're going to do like a maybe sort of like standalone version or something. I feel like they have to. This time they always do like a limited edition one, and then eventually they do like a more standard version so it's more easily accessible. But I think it's definitely on the streaming services somewhere, so you could probably go check it out that way. But personally, I'd probably say the 4K is the way to go. Now, the other vampire film I watched recently, I don't know how much I can really show of this, so I'm just going to be really careful showing it, but it's Lips of Blood. This is a indicator release, limited number of 6,000. It is a film directed by Jean Rollin, so it's a French vampire film. I can't really show the artwork because it's a bit explicit, shall we say. This one is very much like artsy, shall I say, in terms of what's being shown here. It's definitely a mood piece, shall we say, with there's like an ethereal quality to it, and I think it's more just showing off the like scantily clad women vampires really is the main takeaway from it, but not in a vulgar way or anything like that. I think it's just more like, say, oh, look at these beautiful women kind of thing who are just happen to be vampires. But yeah, I definitely think I would check it out again. Probably looking at the extras on the disc for more of a background on it, really, because this is the first film I've seen of the director, but I know he's done a lot more of this kind of nature, so it'd be interesting to check out some of his other filmography works. And it was one of the sets that are kind of like, what shall I start with from the indicator sets, because there was a fair few that were on sale in Black Friday last year. So another vampire movie I watched, and that had a sort of opened the possibility of, oh, maybe there are different types of vampires rather than just the typical ones that you kind of know from like Dracula and everything like that. And the same can be said, definitely so, for the Captain Kronos one. That opens up the idea of different types of vampires for sure. I'm quite into martial arts movies, and one that I found on streaming service Mubi that piqued my interest was a film called The 5 Element Ninjas. The main draw from that was the fact that they have different fighting styles that almost like, well, elemental forces really, almost like in some kind of like Power Ranger style kind of manner. And also, as I was watching the film, it felt like, because I'm a big fan of Pokemon as well, like they had like obviously the elemental types like water and fire and all that, going through the film and seeing how they were represented in this kind of paper thin storyline, shall we say, play out with like absolutely amazing like fight choreography and just the props and everything that had for it to help represent the sort of the elemental zones that they were fighting in. I would normally take pauses in between watching these kind of films because, you know, if you keep watching over and over again, they're going to be very samey. So, you know, taking a breather from like martial arts films and then coming back to them and having them offer something that's quite very uniquely different made for a great watch. And yeah, it's definitely one I would really check out again, if not for the fact of just the fighting styles that they implemented into the choreography there. Also watched a couple of folk horror films, and one that's ultimately very British and is, I say unfortunately, seems quite dated, and that film is The Stone Tape from Nigel Neal. I've got this quite chunky, thick box set from 101 Films, in the veins hopes of it being a like more superior transfer from what I have on DVD currently, but unfortunately that's not the case, sad to say. So this is a film that was broadcast on the BBC on Christmas Day 1972, so a bit like the Ghost Stories for Christmas type of films that they released at that time. I say it is folk horror in a sense because of the element of it being like in a like local mysteries of where it's set and everything, and the sort of like all the rumours about like this fable place, and that's the folk horror element to this film. It's more science fiction than anything, probably more so, in the supernatural element of the ghosts that are involved in it. But what makes the film interesting It's very much like a made-for-television film, and the acting in it is very questionable. Even sort of like the context of what is being said in the film is also a bit like, ooh, yeah, you wouldn't get away with this now. But what the main enjoyment from it, I suppose, is the sort of overreaction of the characters in the film. I'm going to put a clip up now to sort of like give you a sense of what to expect if you to watch the film.
It's in the computer! No! It is! It is! Bloody fool! You picked up words! You got words yourself, that's how it works, I told you!
So in terms of what you get on the disc, there's a bunch of special features on it, and there's a couple of books, one of them being the script, just to show you there, a little unboxing within the video here. So it just goes through like things of like the script writing, like how it plays out for the scenes and everything like that. So that's kind of interesting. I just wish, in fact, that the film itself was maybe like a more high definition quality transfer, I suppose, because I feel like unfortunately it's not really. You know, they could have spruced up a little bit. I wasn't expecting like a massive 4K transfer of the film, but it would have been nicer to have a more upmarket, you know, for what this is, a sort of like upmarket piece of physical media. It's, I don't know, I feel like it deserved a bit more, to be honest. Sort of like the legacy behind it, really. It seems like it's quite a sought after set as well. So whether I keep this or not, I don't know, is another thing, because if it's like almost the same as the DVD, then I don't feel the need to, really, except for the extras, which, yeah, I don't know, we'll have to see. But I will link in the description below where you can watch the film online. I think it's on YouTube at this moment in time, so if you want to see it without, you know, paying for the film, I suppose, then you can do. I don't know how long that link will last, but it's certainly worth checking out if it's something of like that, almost like TV series, maybe of like Doctor Who of the 70s type of style to it and tone and everything like that, especially if you like British drama type of thing, then this is worth checking out. Another folk horror film I checked out was a film called The Outcasts, which is an Irish folk horror tale, and this definitely has more elements of your typical folk horror in it. There's like a mystery man with kind of like a straw hat helmet kind of thing going on, kind of like causes like mischief and everything like that. So there's like that supernatural element to him there, and he's sort of like a legend. And the fact that one of the characters in it she's like called out as like being a witch, and you know that she's like causing all the troubles within the little village, the town that they're in Ireland. So it was very interesting to check that out, because as I say, like, I feel like it's quite ripe for like folk horror elements to it. We normally have like more like child-friendly tales, like A Song of the Sea or Secret of Kells or even Wolfwalkers. Those are obviously more cartoon saloon tales, animation films, but I feel like there's more opportunity to check out or develop sort of like tales from Ireland that would be suitable for folk horror. I know this is out as a physical disc on Deaf Crocodile, which I was intrigued to pick up the set, but I managed to find it on streaming service and check out through that. And definitely something I feel like I would get something out of in the future. A film that me and Sophie watched on a Sunday afternoon, and very much felt like a Sunday afternoon film in the best way possible, was The African Queen, which I got over Christmas. And it's a 1951 film that stars Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn in this kind of like adventure film where the two characters are like, oh, at each other's throats, like, oh, I don't like you and I don't like you either. And then as they go along this journey, they end up like falling in love with each other, and it's really kind of sweet and endearing how that happens, and just like how it's all put together. It's like there's like mild peril, but it's nothing too crazy and everything like that. But honestly, it's just the chemistry that they have between the two of them is really infectious, and you're really rooting for these two to get to where they need to in the film. And so like the transfer looks really great as well. I didn't know what to expect. I initially thought it might have been a black and white film because I normally see Humphrey Bogart in black and white films in the past. So his first colour, seeing him in colour, I suppose. Yeah, definitely an easygoing watch and a really solid recommendation. A film that is not a recommendation, though, personally, is Joker Folie à Deux from Todd Phillips, and the continuation of the Joker story, which, to be honest, I feel like the first one should be like a one and done. You know, they didn't need any more to that story, but, you know, money talks. And so this is almost feels like a courtroom drama, basically, with some musical elements to it, because my god, they were absolutely almost like shoehorned in for the, I mean, obviously if you're doing a full-blown musical, that is part of the whole thing of it, isn't it? Like, oh, with why they're just randomly singing almost. But I don't really get the musical element in this, really, because they're almost like just peppered in, and it's like they don't really add anything to it. And I'm not being funny, but Joaquin Phoenix isn't a very good singer. I don't know if that's the intention, but you know, Lady Gaga being a professional singer, and she's not really doing much in terms of vocal work either. So I don't really know what's going on there. I can only say the best thing about the film, except when it ended, was the little Looney Tunes Warner Brothers short that was played at the beginning. I think, yeah, I wish we could have had more of that, but I know that would have cost them a lot of money to do that sort of like 2D animation, but that was, in fact, the best part of the film, unfortunately. So I don't know, you might get something more out of it than I did, but even Sophie thought this is rubbish, and that's saying something, because we both really liked the first Joker, and this one just didn't do anything for us. So watch it at your own risk. So now we have 2 other podcast episodes we've done in the January, and one of them being Team America World Police. This was going to be a very interesting watch, mainly for Sophie, because for her thoughts and feelings on sort of comedy films and what she was going to make of what's in this film is, yeah, I was really looking forward to revisiting in that sense and getting her initial reaction on it. So if you don't know, it's from the creators of South Park, and they've created a film where it's using the puppetry techniques inspired by Jerry Anderson's Thunderbirds show, and doing like a satirical dig at, you know, like how America's great and everything like that, and they're thinking they're doing good by saving the world with their weaponry and, you know, their vehicles and everything like that to stop the terrorists, but they're actually causing more collateral damage than what the terrorists are. And so it's going through a story of that, and yeah, so like the humour very much resonates with me from being a big fan of South Park, and obviously the writers Trey Parker and Matt Stone in this. Yeah, and honestly, I didn't have a Blu-ray copy of this before, and so I was quite surprised that it was actually getting a 4K release, but then again, most things are these days. But I got to say, like, I've only owned the DVD before, but this is leaps and bounds above that. So yeah, it was a blast. If you want to check out the episode on SP Film Viewers, then we've got it up here on the YouTube channel, but we've also got it on the Spotify and Apple podcast platforms as well. And as for the other film we reviewed this month, it's Thelma and Louise. This nice Criterion set here. Yeah, look fantastic. And I'm gonna say, like, it's one of those instances where I knew how it ended, but wanted to see what the journey was to get to that point, really. So I was always been intrigued to find out, and now I know. And honestly, I think Sophie's most appeal was the inclusion of Brad Pitt in a very young role, and yeah, I think if you've seen the film, the women can probably agree that yeah he's quite dishy, I suppose. Honestly, like, I'm so happy I've got this nice set as well. I want to explore the extras on it as well. But yeah, another great first watch for both of us. And also, I say that's on the SP Film Viewers podcast. So you can find it on YouTube and also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So a couple more films to talk about. One being this new release from Eureka Entertainment. This is the 4K of Cure, and it is a film by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. And the interesting thing about this film for me is I thought I hadn't seen it before, but it turns out as I was going through the film and there were certain scenes that I was watching and was thinking, I swear I've seen this before. So it's kind of ironic, the film being about being under that sort of like hypnotism, making you forget things momentarily. And so in a similar way, I had forgotten that I'd seen the film without realising. But honestly, it was still a fantastic watch. Like, great performances for everybody. The lead antagonist was like very chilling in his performance. It almost like a anime villain kind of thing. It's like, oh, I want you to meet your demise, and sort of like that weird cockiness he had about him. Really, it was absolutely fantastic for like a thriller horror kind of film. So if you appreciate your Japanese films and you really like that kind of crime drama aspect, then definitely recommend you giving this one a watch. And lastly, we had the sad news of David Lynch passing away. And so when I heard about the news, I immediately took it upon myself to go and watch a film of his that I have in the collection that I've wanted to revisit for quite some time, and it is Mulholland Drive. Now I've got this is the very slim case of thing. There's like a box set I got from Studio Canal, I believe it is, yes. That's on the shelf up above me, but it came in that nice box, and I thought, but for shelf space, it sits just snugly on there. But honestly, this was like seeing the film for the first time again, almost like I just said about Cure, where I think last time I saw it would have maybe been on Blu-ray or something like that, but this is like leaps and bounds above that, and like I'm so engrossed in the story with how it all plays out. When they're in like the theatre with the opera and everything, and it felt like quite emotional. It felt like more like bittersweet, the fact that David Lynch is no longer with us now, and so seeing that scene was quite poignant. And just honestly, like how everything is like put together in there, and you kind of like going through the film and making heads or tails about the work that he's put together, the craft of the story and everything like that. It's just incredible. I'm always like a big sucker for like, a film about films and all like that. So this is a high benchmark for films like that. But hopefully going to be doing some more actual David Lynch reviews for the podcast. So be on the lookout for those in the future. I think I just need to find out which ones to either do as a Patreon pick or just have Sophie watch really and experience it the first time. So let me know your thoughts in the comments on what I should go for. So there we have it. There's some films I've watched during the month of January. And like I say, if you want to see what other films I did watch but didn't talk about in this episode, then you can just simply head over to the Letterboxd account to see the star ratings of those films. So yeah, please like and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell as well to get updates on when new videos come out. Thank you very much for watching once again, and speak to you next time.